Joining us today is a woman who is fundamentally changing how we remember those we've lost. Mandy Benoualid is the visionary founder behind Keeper, which is a leading edge online memorial platform, and she's the editor of Talk Death, which is the go-to resource for honest conversations about mortality. An industry innovator and a regular on the speaker circuit, Mandy is dedicated to evolving what death looks like for those left behind, and she has her finger very well on the pulse of where this industry is headed, I think. Mandy, thanks so much for being on the Dying to Know More podcast. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Well, so before we dig into kind of your what seems to be growing footprint in this space, tell me about your background. Like, how did you end up working in this area?
Yeah, honestly, my background is not very traditional. I do not come from a family of funeral directors. I actually did communication studies and I was in documentary filmmaking with a specialty in sound production. And then I
I was too,
was
by
in
the
a
way. That's interesting.
oh,
I went to school
that's
for film and I was
interesting.
focusing on sound, but here I am. Anyway, go ahead.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. And I'm like using this terrible microphone and my sound teacher would be like cringing right now. Um, yeah, so I had that was how I started, and
Yeah.
then I did some focus on marketing and event coordination. And one day I was at a cemetery and I saw a glass front niche where there was an urn and the family had left some mementos, and one of those mementos was a blank CD, like from the 90s, showing my
Mhm.
age. And it just had the words Dad's Work written on it in Sharpie. And I thought that that was very interesting and very strange. And the family clearly cared a lot about this person's legacy and what they did. And they wanted to also ensure it was preserved and celebrated and noticed by others. So that's really where the idea came from, was what if you could walk around in the cemetery and learn about the story of everyone there? And
Was
so,
the CD like meant for people to use it and explore the
no,
work?
I mean,
Yeah.
you couldn't do anything with it. This was
I
like,
see.
back in 2011 or 2012,
Okay.
actually.
Yeah.
And so it was just like a blank CD on display. And it
Gotcha.
just said that there was no play button, that there was no device you can play it with. So,
Yeah.
my first instinct was to Google his name and be like, oh, was he like an architect or a photographer, or, what is on his blank CD?
Right.
And so that's really how it started. That it came with an idea. And then I was working with a software company at the time in marketing. And so the idea we had was, let's just try to put something together where people can find a way to preserve memories. I also, right around that time, had lost my mentor very, very suddenly.
Oh,
Um, and after he passed away, his family just very suddenly removed his Facebook account. And that was when, prime Facebook time, when all the
yeah.
communication I was having with
Yeah.
folks was on Facebook,
Yeah.
right? So we were sending DMs there, and that's where all of our photos were stored. Like, I looked at my old Facebook, and like we would just take entire like cards of our like digital cameras and just put the entire album on Facebook, like not
Yeah.
even editing. It was
Yeah.
hilarious. All my photos of him were there, and his
Okay.
family took it down. And I was supposed to say a speech at his funeral and help prepare a video. And then I had nothing left. And so it was like the second loss that I went through all over again. And I realized that, we don't have a place that's sort of safe to be able to just keep these memories alive, because Facebook is a place for the living. We've all, hopefully not all, but many of us have had that experience where we've had someone that has passed away and they're on Facebook, and
Yeah.
there's a strange digital footprint of them where you get reminders for their birthdays, and it's just a space for the living, and that's the reality of it, which is
Yeah.
totally fine.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that all kind of culminated into the creation of Keeper.
Okay. So, and that was in 2013, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And so it's got multiple tiers. You've got a free and then you've got two paid tiers. So just kind of give us the lowdown of what you get on each one. And I also wondered, is everything kind of there in perpetuity, or is it just for a limited time, or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So Keeper, actually, when we started back in 2013, was actually all totally free. The goal was for it to be more like a Facebook.
Okay.
And then we realized we did not want to sell people's data or have a bunch of advertisers on the site. And so on top of that, we had our own customers saying, how are you making money? And how is this, my loved one's memory going to stay online actually safely if you're not charging me anything? The
Right.
reality is that we've had a B2B side of our business where our memorial pages, we essentially white label them, and we white label our full software
Okay.
for funeral homes and cemeteries. So
Okay.
that's another side of our business where funeral homes and cemeteries are able to utilize our entire suite. And
Yeah.
that's how we were making money. So essentially what we've done now is we completely revamped our system just a couple of years ago. And with that, we came up with a free version, which is what a lot of families need. It has
Yeah.
the ability to add a story and some photos, and there's unlimited tributes. And there's one main manager, and there's some privacy settings. And so that's sort of our basic free plan. And
Okay.
then Keeper Plus is a 99 US one-time fee. It is a lifetime fee, and that gives you access to really extensive features like unlimited media storage, multiple administrators, a lot of different privacy settings,
Yeah.
event pages that lets you manage everything. And so that's how we built it. And then we have a third tier, which is called the concierge tier. And
Uh-huh.
that's literally our team. We have two team members there, and they will work with you from A to Z to get the page going. So it's like someone that's walking you through everything, but they're also, you just basically send them as many photos and videos and anything as you want, and they build you a page for you.
Yeah.
So that's for folks who may not be as comfortable with technology,
Yeah.
or for people who just, grief is like, you just forget everything when you're
Yeah.
grieving. You don't have time to
Yeah.
do that, but you love the idea of it. So our team just takes care of it for you.
Yeah.
So we also have that feature as well.
It's really amazing. I was looking through the features, and it's amazing what all you get for the pricing. Especially when you compare it to like obituaries, like online obituaries. I mean, it's like amazing. And it's the fact that it's multiple people can contribute to it. It really provides a well-rounded view of the person who's passed. I think that's amazing. So you created Keeper, and then you launched into Talk Death. So was that sort of like a natural evolution, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so we started a Keeper blog, which was really
Okay.
our marketing person was like, for good SEO, you need a blog.
Yeah.
So we literally started a blog for Keeper. We just started writing very basic articles. If you look in our archive from 2014, which is still on Talk Death, I probably shouldn't tell people, but you can go down to 2014 and you'll still see some OG articles.
Yeah.
Um, what to wear to a funeral, and
Yeah.
like sympathy messages, and like things that people still look up today and we still
Right.
have traffic for. But we started it really basic like that, and something really sparked with me. We were at I think it was the NFDA or the ICCFA, which is one of the funeral industry conferences in the US.
Yeah.
And there was a sort of co-conference a few doors down of, I think, mostly like grief counselors. And they came and they saw our logo. They're like, "Oh my God, we love your company. We love your blog and all your articles." And I was like, "Oh, like that's actually just our blog. Like we have a more moralization product and
Yeah.
QR codes and all this stuff." And they were like, "Oh, I didn't even know that you had that." So people were recognizing us for our blog content more
Gotcha.
than they were for our product.
Right.
So that happened, but then that also is what opened my eyes up to the there's so many conversations that we can have about death and dying.
Yes.
As soon as I would, walk into a room and my friends would be like, "Oh, you're working on that death thing, right?" And like people would just start opening up to me about,
Yeah.
their family member that passed away years ago, and people I found were just so fascinated in
Yeah.
learning about death and talking about death. And there was so much about, the funeral industry, quote unquote, that is so behind closed doors. And
Yeah.
so we really started with a first video series called #TalkDeath, where we
Right.
interviewed death professionals. Funny enough, our first interviewee was Caitlin Dowdy. This was like back in the day, which was
I
super
was.
cool. She's a wonderful person. We still keep in touch. And we started just talking to professionals like autopsy technicians and you name it. And
Yeah.
we started having these conversations where members of the public would be able to ask their questions, and we
Hmm.
would interview them about those questions. And so it kind of just snowballed. And we were like, you know what? Like, is obviously a passion of mine. And my now husband, Jeremy, he was the co-editor, co-founder of Talk Death, and he still is our main editor. And we just continued and just rebranded and gave it its own life.
Yeah.
So they're still sister companies, because, full disclosure, TalkNet doesn't really make money. So we
Yeah.
kind of just do it as a passion project. And so,
Right.
yeah, we still work on that together.
So of everything that you've published, even on the blog, the Keeper blog, from all the way to present, what is there like one article or one topic that always resonates with readers, or you get the most page views out of?
Okay, so gets the most page views, but not necessarily what resonates the most, I have to say. It's
Okay.
kind of like a standing joke now, but Irish funeral traditions is an article I think we published 2015. It is still one of our top ranking articles month after month after month.
Really?
Yeah,
Why do you suppose?
I
I mean, obviously people are searching for it, but what a
I know. I don't know exactly. I think people learn about wakes and Irish funeral traditions, and they
yeah,
are very fascinating.
yeah.
Um, it's possible that, we get a lot of traffic from academic institutions, so we can see where the traffic
Hmm.
comes from. A lot of times it
Yeah.
is universities. And
Okay.
so it's often like students that are like doing research about death and dying and trying to
Gotcha.
learn about practices.
Okay.
So that's one that's just always surprising to me. But I think my favorite thing, that we've been really focused on the last couple of years is we have guest writers from all over the world, and they talk about their local cultural death practices.
That's
And
amazing.
there's been such fascinating stories and just such fascinating culture and rituals that is just amazing. I think
What's the most interesting one that you've learned about through your guest writers?
when someone in India passes away, the culture of laying a body in the Ganges is just so incredible. And there's always, I'm trying to remember which child, but there's always like a child that is responsible for all of these rituals to actually occur.
Okay.
And there's just so much responsibility placed on the family for this. And even like the way that the social structure works there is that, like, if your family were the ones that were responsible for working by the Ganges and working by the crematories there and working by placing the bodies there, like that continues on. And so
Yeah.
there's like generations of families that have done this work. And
That's a,
so I think that is really fascinating. But
yeah.
honestly, there's so many, it's even hard to like think of some of them. But yeah.
Have you heard of pyres?
Yeah, funeral pyres. Yeah, of
I
course.
I had never heard of this concept until like 2 nights ago, and I was like, "What?"
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. There's
Hopefully I'm a
I
British
was
different, but yeah, I think.
I
What do you know
I,
about
I
it?
was in Ghana on a trip a few years ago, and we were at a local cemetery there, and there was just a funeral pyre there. So essentially, I mean, for those listening, if you don't know, it's basically just like it's open air cremation
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
So the body's placed, there's like wood, and other I was gonna say compostable, but materials that will help for the body to essentially be lit on fire.
Right.
And it's just an open air cremation. And
Okay.
there's one place in North America that has it, or within Canada and the US rather, that have it.
I think it's
And
Arizona. Is it Arizona? Somewhere out west.
Col- Colorado,
Is it Colorado? Okay.
North Carolina. Oh my goodness, I know.
I'd be
It
shocked if
should.
it was North Carolina, but yeah, I think it's somewhere out west. But now I've got
It
to
is out.
dig in
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
Okay.
My daughter will go before I am this morning, so I'm like not my. I'm I'm not 100% there, so my
No good.
memory has been terrible.
So,
Um, yeah,
in addition to, like, I mean, you guys cover all sorts of topics on Talk Death. Do you, like, in terms of the funeral type pieces, like that space, do you think that we are just moving towards the end of the traditional funeral industry as we know it? Is that, it just seems like there's a lot of innovation happening and acceptance around alternatives?
yeah, it's a tough question. I wouldn't say off the bat that we are at the end of the traditional funeral industry.
Okay.
Are we moving further away from traditional funerals in and of themselves? Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
But ultimately, death work is something that will always be needed.
Yeah.
And, as many of us know, it started out in the communities where we would have our own, where we'd have our loved one pass away at home. We would care for their body at home, and then they would eventually be taken to the local cemetery or graveyard, churchyard, to be buried. And that changed after the Civil War,
Mhm.
and more people needed to be embalmed so that we can transport bodies, and that's still something we have today. And then the professionalization came around, and I think what we're wanting to do now is we're wanting to go back to community-led death care, which I think is incredibly important. But part
Mhm.
of why we also had to start using funeral homes more is that we were becoming more and more urban. And
Mhm.
so we don't necessarily have the parlor room in our home
Right.
to host a body and to host a loved one. And so I think that there is this need with also, our secularization, um, to find new rituals in order to process a loss. But at the end of the day, we're always going to need people, whether it be a death doula or a funeral director,
Yeah.
to help with even the basics. We have to transport our
Mhm.
loved one. You are allowed to transport a body yourself in most places, in most states, but most people don't want to transport their dead
Yeah.
loved one in their own vehicle, right?
Right. Right.
And so I think what we are finding is that, with the new companies we're seeing come up with human composting, with aquamation or alkaline hydrolysis, with more and more death doulas uh, being certified, even though there's not really a certification, but more and more death doulas trying to come into practice. I think that we're just seeing a shift that we want something different. We don't
Right.
want to walk into a stuffy funeral home with the terribly upholstered couches and just kind of sit there and be spoken to or talked at by a clergy person who barely knows anything about the person they're talking
Exactly.
about,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that doesn't resonate with us.
Yeah.
But I still want to say though that, we think that we're all secular and that no one is religious anymore, but there's actually like so many, like there's actually still very, very strong religion out there.
Mhm.
And I actually think that for people that have a culture behind them that helps, that really has a ritual set in place, I think it's actually more helpful. I was having lunch with someone like even 2 days ago, and they come from a Buddhist background, and they were like, it wasn't even the religious aspect when my mom passed away, because it wasn't about the religion, it was about the community coming together. Everyone knew what had to be done and when, and where to go and what to do,
Mhm.
and everyone like had their role, and everyone came together as a community around our culture, right? And so that's what I think is really important, and that's what I think what we're lacking today, and what I think we're all seeking is to create new rituals within our community.
Right.
Um, but I think that when done right, funeral directors can and should be part of our community, right? Death doulas can and should be part of our
Mhm.
community. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Totally.
So, yeah.
So given how, and I want to get to Gathering Us and how you guys acquired that shortly, but there's a lot, tech plays a large role in the work that you do. And there's a lot of innovation, like I said, in this space, new companies, new processes, things like that, more acceptance of things like acclimation. What is the most interesting or the something that's emerging that has you so excited that you see coming down the pike but may not be mainstream yet?
It's interesting. To be honest, I don't know if there's been something that is new that has been exciting for me.
Okay.
I think that I'm very interested. What I'm most interested in, what I'm most excited about is cemeteries, particularly conservation cemeteries
Hmm.
opening up,
Hmm.
and more of them opening up. There's still not many, but
Right.
opening up with the goal of protecting the land from
Yeah.
future development
Yeah.
and creating a beautiful natural space for natural burial or green burial.
Yeah.
So I say that I'm not that excited about new things, quote unquote. Like one of the most, I think interesting pieces we've heard about recently is those mycelium caskets from Loop Biotech out of Norway or somewhere in Europe.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most innovative things we've seen. However, if you've gone to a natural burial ground, which I've been to quite a few, you open you open the grave and you leave that grave there, typically, you'll have a grave opened. It'll be about 3 to 4 feet deep max. You'll cover it with a plank, getting ready for the burial in a day or two, right? These are some that are even buried that are opened by hand.
Yeah.
You open up, you remove that piece of plywood, and you see that ground, and it's almost white. There is mycelium just in the ground
Yeah.
naturally,
Yeah.
right? And so what I'm actually excited about is for us to go back and remember that we used to just need a shroud. We
Yeah.
still just need a shroud
Right.
or a very simple pine box or just like a basket that holds the body in a shroud and lowers it down. I've done quite a few green burials and I also volunteer at my local Hever Kadisha. And that's what we do. That's what Jewish folks and what Muslim folks have done for centuries is
Yeah.
wash the body. We don't embalm. We just put them in a beautiful shroud. We have some ritual prayers that we say over the body and we put them directly in the ground as quickly as possible. So what's exciting for me is for people to kind of rediscover
Yes.
these old traditions because
Yes.
that's all I think we need. You know, human composting was the idea, Katrina Spade had come up with this idea because just like what it was called, it was for an urban environment because they
Right.
didn't have access to go out into the forest in like the urban environment of Seattle to
Hmm.
have a green burial. And so that's where that came from. And so I completely understand that, right? They wanted an urban green option.
Right.
But if for those of us that have the access to conservation grounds and conservation more important than green because it's going to keep the land there and
Hmm.
not allow for future development, that's what I think is most exciting is for us to be able to open that and create more accessible ways for people to be able to bury their loved ones in those kinds of
Well,
spaces.
and more awareness, frankly. I mean, it's like the we have a very long standing history of that's just how it's always been done. People have always, you know what I mean? And so kind of um showing there's an alternative and one that should strongly be considered is I think that might be a challenge, but I think it's an exciting time to your point to that it's starting to get a lot more awareness.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
okay, so Keeper acquired Gathering Us, which is an online memorial service platform, and that's kind of another facet to the work that you're doing. Like, what's your ultimate vision for what you're creating?
My ultimate vision is really just to continue with our mission of legacy keeping and storytelling.
Hmm.
I think that I deeply regret not sitting down with one of my grandfathers before he passed away and learning about his history and his time living in Morocco and working and being a semi-professional basketball player. And
Wow.
I regret not having that. Um, And I want people to be able, I'm a taphophile. I love cemeteries, obviously, but I also love history and looking at old photographs. And um, I think that we're starting to kind of like lose a focus with that. And so I just want to create a space where people can remember their loved ones and pass it on and pass it down.
Yeah.
And at the same time, with Talk Death, like it's interesting. Like they're so intertwined, but they're also so separate as
Mhm.
organizations.
Mhm.
And with Talk Death, I kind of want to continue, with Keeper's goal, but I just want folks to learn that there's a lot more out there than those traditional funerals that they maybe grew up to. And I want people to realize that there can be a really beautiful part of death, and it doesn't have to be scary, and that there's so much that we can learn, and that will just help us accept it. I mean, with Keeper, like, and same with Talk Death, we talk about products and services that are coming out that can help people. I want that to be like a hub for folks at Keeper so that they just like have one safe place to go where they know that they're going to be receiving,
Yeah.
really good information and just really solid resources that they can trust.
Yeah, and I love that part of Talk Death is the resource section. It's broken down and organized really well. And I think you're fulfilling what your mission, as you say. So hats off to you. One thing I want to touch on before we wrap up is you guys do an annual cemetery scavenger hunt. Yes.
Yeah, we do. We do.
So
It
tell us
was
about
our
those. Like, how do you choose the cemeteries? How does somebody, when do you announce all of that?
Yeah, so it's last year was our 6th year. This year will be our 7th.
Okay.
We started really small. It was a COVID initiative of creating a family-friendly, COVID-safe Halloween time activity, and it's just grown every year. We honestly started partnering with cemeteries because we were getting complaints from cemeteries that there were people doing scavenger hunts in their cemeteries. Because at first, like 4 or 5 people, like friends, just walking into like their local cemetery
Yeah.
and looking for clues,
Yeah.
right? And so, as we grew, we decided we're actually partnering with cemeteries. And so cemeteries are actually welcome to contact us if they want to partner with us.
Okay.
And essentially give the cemeteries a packet of what they need. We announce them as an official partner. And I think like we really do this, again, our goal of building community. Our goal is that people get to learn about the history of their cemetery, become more familiar with it, to
Hmm.
have the cemetery be able to bring in more community members to appreciate their space.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what we're doing. So any cemetery is able to contact us, and they can become a partner. There's some criteria, of course, involved that folks need to be able to take photos of the markers, things like that.
Hmm.
And we will be announcing it probably in June is usually when we announce. We get working on it pretty quickly every year because it's growing every year.
Yeah.
And it'll be similar. We're going to drop a bunch of clues. We're actually probably going to come out with our own app now to help you enter the clues because our site crashed last year or last October because there were too many visitors.
Yeah.
So we have to have some tech behind it now because it
Yeah.
was getting a little too crazy. But yeah, it's a beautiful time to just get out, learn some history, enjoy your cemetery, and maybe dress up for Halloween.
That's so awesome. All right,
Yeah.
so we are to the point. I've asked everybody 2 questions. So first is, since you've been working in this space, what has been the single most impactful experience you've had or relationship you've made?
I think the single most impactful experience I've had was doing a green burial for a family, and they wanted it to be a closed casket service. And kind of at the last minute, the sister said, I really want to see my brother before we put him in the ground, before we bury him. And I took her aside and just kind of explained, he hadn't been embalmed. It had been a couple days. Explained that he may look a little different, but that we took really good care of him. And we opened up the casket for her and she saw him and she just gave him a kiss. And it was just such a profound, she was so happy she was able to see him again. It was such a profound experience. We had flower petals leading up to his grave, and then we all dropped more flowers into the grave after we lowered it by hand ourselves. And it just showed me how important and how moving and healing a ritual can be around death. So not related to the tech, honestly. To me, I've found so much meaning in these personal experiences.
That's amazing. All right, and last question, are you afraid to die? Why or why not?
So a year and a half ago, I would have said no. And I now have a 1.5-year-old child. And so
That changes things.
I did not expect my perspective on death to change so much.
Yeah.
It's been something I've been meaning to write a personal piece on this, but I just want to be there for my daughter, and I think that I am definitely not excited to die.
Yeah.
It is something that I think I can accept, and I have what I have been always moving towards acceptance. But it's something that if you asked me a year and a half ago, my answer would have been a lot different, I think.
Interesting. Yeah. Kids change things. They change you. Well, Mandy, I so appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Listeners, I will put all the socials and the URLs in the show notes so you can further explore everything that Mandy's working on. And again, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It has really been my pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me. It was great.
If you like this episode of Dying to Know More, be sure to give it a like and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode.